The Last Recruit is an action-packed episode, and in this analysis I will finally explore Sayid's sickness. Did he really die? Did this happen to Claire and Ben? How could he be cured? And we're going to look at some brand new filming locations. Let's begin with Sayid. During this season he's been through a special transformation. Naveen Andrews' acting has been a little bit different, and his character has been a pawn in Man in Black's game. This all stems from what happened at the pool, and we're still asking questions about this whole process and how you can tip the scale the right way. Sayid died and was brought to life, just like a zombie. But in this episode we see that Desmond's speech manages to inject some spark into him, and already in the next episode he's the same logical, technology-driven Sayid we've known for a long time.
These wires, they're leads from the watch. If we disconnect them from the battery, technically speaking, the bomb should be inert.
Technically?
Yes, but you need to pull them out simultaneously, and I'm not sure...
Step aside.
So how does that work on a physiological level? What happened to Sayid? Let's separate this in two columns. Dead and alive. In LAX, Lennon said Sayid was dead. If you go to Lostpedia, Roger Linus is listed as having killed Sayid. Later, Miles said he was dead.
They tried to save you, but... you were dead, man. For 2 hours. Trust me, when you sat up, they were just as surprised as the rest of us. So whatever brought you back, it wasn't them.
Even Jack tried to revive him and then stopped when he was dead. The fact that an extremely good surgeon gave up on him should tell everyone that Sayid did in fact die, right? In the other column we have alive. Neither Richard nor Ben has seen anyone come back to life.
How are you alive?
Well, you've been on this island much longer than I have, Richard. If anyone should have an explanation, I'd think it would be you.
I have been here a long time, John, and I've seen things on this island that I could barely describe, but I've never seen someone come back to life.
And I've never seen anyone who doesn't age. It doesn't mean it can't happen.
I've seen this island do miraculous things. I've seen it heal the sick, but never once has it done anything like this. Dead is dead.
So their comments support this column. So if we go by this theory that Sayid was always alive, the references by Dogen and Lennon just means that they mistook his pulse and that he was actually alive, kind of like what happened to Nicky and Paolo.
Nicky's dead.
Miles is not a doctor, so he just went with what the others thought. Then that means if Sayid was alive all along, Miles would not be able to hear his dead thoughts, and Jack simply did not manage to revive him, that he was still unconscious, barely clinging on, and then rose up afterwards, when his wound was healed. In the medical field, brain death is the permanent, irreversible, and complete loss of brain function, and that did not happen to Sayid, if we go by this column. Modern medicine could revive those who could be assumed dead through defibrillators and other instruments. A famous real-world example is when Bob Odenkirk had a heart incident on the set of Better Call Saul. His heart didn't beat for 18 minutes. That seems like an awfully long time, especially since he didn't enter a coma or anything like that, but they had someone to perform CPR there and managed to have blood flow to his brain. So even though some people could say that Bob Odenkirk died for 18 minutes, he wouldn't be officially declared dead by any means until he was actually dead. Similarly to Odenkirk, another character on Lost was not breathing for several minutes, Charlie Pace. However, just like Bob Odenkirk, Jack managed to keep blood flow to his brain. Charlie survived. In season 2 we have a different situation, one that could be quite similar to Sayid's.
My daughter, she drowned.
I'm very sorry for your loss.
Oh no, you don't understand. She came back to life.
Ambrose brought this girl in, dead. She'd been in the water 2 hours.
Charlotte Malkin, who fell into the river and went into hypothermia, a state that made her appear dead. She said she was in between places.
I saw him when I was between places. He said that you would come and see me.
Charlie, Charlotte, and Sayid were brought back to life before the end of the episode. We as an audience would not completely say they were dead. We would just say that they had a near-death experience. In the real world, various processes happen to a body and its inner organs after you're dead. However, we're on a special island. So if we go to this side and look at the dead column, that Sayid was by all accounts considered dead, the cessation of all bodily functions. He would be declared dead and then a true resurrection took place. Dogen and Len correctly guessed he was dead, and were both shocked he came back. Jack did CPR, and it did not help. And Miles is correct in saying that Sayid was dead for 2 hours, and the reason why he looks so weird at Sayid is that he could possibly hear Sayid's final thoughts in the previous episode, and now Sayid is alive again. Miles has never heard the voices of someone like that and then see them waking up. But what about his body? Since the island is unusual, it doesn't necessarily start to decompose Sayid's body as quickly as others. Mother says that the light is life, death, and rebirth, so it also fits with Across the Sea, that Sayid really did undergo a resurrection, just like we see in folklore and religion, that this is something so rare that neither Ben nor Richard has seen it. It has not happened in all those years Richard was here, but it could have happened centuries earlier. Maybe Man in Black Locke anticipated that Jacob had told Richard at some point that there have been a few people that were resurrected on the island. That's why Man in Black Locke doesn't hide the fact that he, as in Locke, was killed and brought to the island.
You seemed pretty convinced, especially when I said you were going to die. Certainly glad that didn't have to happen.
Actually, Richard, it did.
He just assumes that Richard will buy into the lie that he has been resurrected, just like some other people in the past, maybe an older temple master or Egyptian leader. Or else Man in Black Locke is playing a big gamble that Richard is not going to piece together that he is not Locke, but the Man in Black, if resurrection is completely impossible. But hold on, what about young Ben and Claire? Did the same thing happen to them? We know that Ben was brought to the temple while Jacob was alive, so the healing waters worked just like they always did, and he was brought there with Richard, so surely Richard would say that he has seen one person be resurrected if it happened to Ben. So Ben did not die, he was healed, and Claire was brought to the temple at some point in the 3-year time span. But that was while Jacob was alive, and she didn't mention that she was in the pool, and I don't think she was tested instead. As Dogen said, the darkness grew inside her, she became claimed, and that was not through the pool. One could even theorize that when Claire says Charlie, she briefly had one moment in the afterlife when she met Charlie during her awakening.
Sure.
Okay.
Similar to Juliet's comment to James, but it didn't stop then for her. She kept seeing things for the next episode.
Yeah, just a bit woozy.
How's your head?
It's better. Bit of a headache, but at least I'm not seeing things anymore.
And then making bizarre out of character decisions, such as leaving the baby in the jungle. By the time we see her in the cabin, she's already infected. Dogen also mentions that once it reaches the heart, it's going to be too late. And the reason he knows this is because it happened to Claire. But he's wrong, it's not too late for Claire. She does ultimately start to veer off to the good side. One theory I liked is that Echo's baptism made her safe, that the infection would not completely destroy her good spirit and soul. It also makes the episode Fire Plus Water a little bit more important to Claire's character. And additionally, she does swim from the sailboat to the mainland later in this episode, so she is in the island water. But let's go back to Sayid. So he dies and drowns, and before Sayid's soul would be able to pass into the afterlife, it was corrupted and infected by the Man in Black, while the healing waters of the pool still healed him. Remember, it did patch up his bullet wound, so there is some healing in the works here. But with the water being contaminated, Sayid's soul would be like this. If this is his health bar, there's a tiny percent of goodness, possibly the light that Jacob passed on, or something he had in his heart all along. Since his bar is so low, he doesn't feel emotions. This is a classical trope of people who are brought back from the dead. I'm a little bit indifferent on this issue, where I would place my headcanon on these two columns. It's honestly the same to me. But the thing is, Sayid's goodness and spirit is still somewhere inside of him, because it's Desmond's speech that ignites it for him. And you could argue that the same thing is happening to Claire, that Kate's speech and presence boost her meter. Because in the end, it's not like a physical virus. Yes, Sayid was claimed through the water, but the true power was in the words. We see this time and time again. Man in Black tries to influence Ricardo at his most vulnerable. Jacob does manage to persuade him, but he does cleanse him prior to that. Claire tells Jack this in this episode.
Yeah, you have.
What do you mean?
You decided the moment you let him talk to you, just like the rest of us. So, you know, whether you like it or not, you're with him now.
But Jack is not near death. It's gonna take more to claim Jack, but it's still interesting that there's more of a psychological factor to the sickness and how much speech has a healing power. This is a prevalent theme in religion, the power of words. Many Muslims believe that the Quran contains the words of Allah and that its verses have the power to heal, inspire and transform individuals. Desmond manages to use his words to tip the scale the other way. Let's look at the episode a little bit. It's still day 10. Jack meets alone with Man in Black Locke in a place that is supposed to evoke the first important Jack and Locke conversation. The filming location is not the same. He confirms that he appeared as Christian Shepherd on the first week on the island. It's really fitting that the place the coffin landed was also the place where the Man in Black was born and laid to rest. They go back to camp. In the morning, at Man in Black Locke's camp, Sawyer tells Hurley about the deal he made with Widmore. If you believe that Zoe's team were part of the outrigger chase, then that scene could have happened now, or maybe earlier during the package, before they found Jin. Zoe enters the camp. Zoe radios in a drone missile that explodes just behind their camp. Then she leaves.
Well, here we go.
Man in Black Locke announces to the group that they are headed over to Hydra Island to assault Widmore's team and get on the plane. He gives Sawyer the task to retrieve a boat a few hours away down the coast and bring it to a rendezvous. We're now given the final map of the Lost Journey series, and this one is quite consistent in both compass and design. It confirms that everything happens on this part of the island, which is fun because this is an area that never saw any action in the first 5 seasons, and now we're moving around here a lot. But let me explain a little bit here. Man in Black Locke has drawn a sailboat here, and points at this area, that they're all sailing on the other side of the bluffs.
There's a boat moored just a few hours down the shore from here. I want you to get it and meet the rest of us on the other side of these bluffs. We'll all sail over to the other island together. Can you do that, James?
How come we're not all heading for it together?
The bigger the group, the slower it moves.
But I think the boat illustration means that this is where he should park the boat and meet the rest. When Man in Black Locke says there is a boat a couple hours down, I think it means south and that Sayid anchored it in the water. It's a bit weird that Sawyer is sent to move the sailboat from here to there. It makes more sense if the sailboat is parked down here, through thicker and tougher terrain, and that by transporting it here it'll be easier for them to travel to Hydra Island. After Man in Black Locke leaves the camp with Sayid, Sawyer informs Jack of his plan to commandeer Widmore's sub. He says this:
First chance you get, you double back, hoof it to this spot. There's an old dock.
He mentions an abandoned dock. This might be an old dock from the Dharma days, which is how Sawyer knows about it. The small tugboat could have been parked here from time to time in case Dharma people needed to take a quick trip to Hydra Island without using the Pala ferry. Summarized, I think the sailboat is here, a couple of hours down the beach. This is the place where Man in Black's followers will start their boat journey. While this area has the old dock where Sawyer meets Jack's group, it's also going to fit in terms of how they split up. In the jungle, Man in Black Locke asks Sayid to go to the well where he left Desmond and kill him. Sayid finds Desmond and Desmond asks what Man in Black Locke offered Sayid in exchange for the murder. Sayid explains that Man in Black Locke promised him a reunion with Nadia, despite the fact that she's dead. Kate and Sawyer find Desmond's old sailboat, the Elizabeth. According to Lost Virtual Tour, this is filmed at a beach near Ko Olina. That's the first time we're in this filming location. I find that surprising since Ko Olina is filled with all these tall buildings, beach chairs and everything. It's a retreat. Either it's a mistake or they went for this beach, for instance, and masked out a lot in post. For instance, some of these rocks, and added a sailboat digitally later.
James should be on his way by now. Just keep everyone moving to the beach. I'll catch up with you there.
Where are you going?
I want to make sure nobody got left behind.
Journeying through the jungle, Jack leads Sun, Frank and Hurley away from Man in Black's group, but are followed by Claire. Man in Black Locke finds Sayid in the jungle, then they both hurry back to their group. Jack's group meet up with Sawyer and Kate at the old dock. And did you know that the production went to another island to film this? This is filmed at Coconut Island, this small island over here. But it's still part of Oahu, Hawaii, which is where they shoot the show. It's fun that they try some creative solutions like this. I couldn't find the exact dock. For all we know, it's no longer there, like the Palafair dock. But the mountains are on this side, so it should be on this side of the island. And you can see that the terrain is very similar. As they board, Claire emerges. Kate explains to Claire that reuniting her with Aaron was her sole reason for returning to the island, and here we have another instance of the power of speech. Claire's darkness inside her is diminishing. Out on the water, Jack tells Sawyer that perhaps it was not the best idea to leave the main island and join with Widmore, citing the island is not done with them. Sawyer demands that Jack get off the boat. Jack jumps and swims back.
We have to go back and get him.
We're done going back, Kate.
And I think that the Man in Black Log's group just stay in the jungle, but then they see Jack swimming towards the beach, so he and 8 other temple others emerge out. You can see 7 here, but it's 8 counting this man's shadow. We don't see any kids here, nor Cindy. On the shore at Hydra Island, which is filmed at the east end of Kawela Bay Banyan Beach, we've been at this location a couple of times on the show, serving as different locations on the island. Sun and Jin reunite, then someone with some good binoculars spot Locke's group at the beach. Zoe orders to fire at them. A barrage of drone missiles fired by Widmore's men explodes around them. Presumably it kills all 8 temple dwellers, which means that there's only 10 others left on the island. Cindy, Zach, Emma, the 2 other kids, and 5 more background others. Man in Black Log carries a slightly wounded Jack into the jungle. Next episode we'll go straight into the candidate. See you then, and please subscribe for more island exploration.